So good afternoon. I'm Kevin Bemmel, and I am the host of The Way to Wow, People Making Money. And this week, unfortunately, our guest couldn't make it. He had a personal emergency, and so we're going to reschedule for a different time. But I thought I would take today to talk about a subject that I think will make a real difference in our ability to be people making money and finding our way to wow. So if you saw any of my social media posts and that sort of thing, I asked a couple of questions. One is, have you heard about the great job market and the great resignation, which would seem to indicate, and this was the second question, so it must be easy to get a job. But not just a job, but a great job, something you really like to do that will give you a good income, right? So, but it turns out that that's not necessarily the case. So if you look around at where job openings are, if you really want to be involved in hospitality, in the restaurant business, the hotel business, at a entry level position, or a slightly above entry level position, or as a waiter, waitress, absolutely, those jobs are very plentiful. If you want to work in retail as a clerk or something like that, for sure, lots and lots of jobs in those areas. They don't pay particularly well. That's one of the problems with them. And it's hard work, right? For any of you who's ever served the public, the public can be awfully crabby a lot of the time. And so, especially when they're hungry, right? Which is one of the challenges that people working in restaurants have. I worked at Arby's when I was a kid, a long time ago. And some people were very, very nice. And other times they were, very, very rude. And in fact, a couple of times customers would give one particular young woman who I worked with a bad time. And I felt compelled to walk up to her and say, Niffer, why don't you go take care of this? And I said, may I help you, sir? And he realized he'd been a jerk. And one of them I told to get out of the restaurant. We're not going to serve you. We don't tolerate people treating our people like that. Unfortunately, the manager of the restaurant backed me up when he heard about it, because I'm sure you can appreciate kicking out a customer wasn't de rigueur back then. But it's hard work, to do that. Now, there are other jobs available that pay much better. Trucking is one of them. There's certainly a dearth of people working in the trucking business right now. So there's openings there. That takes training. And it also takes the ability to, be on the road away from your family quite a bit, being alone often for, quite a long time. Now, if that fits who you are and what you want to do, hey, terrific. So that may be, a real opportunity for you. But for many of us, none of those are really what we want to do. And so the fact that we're in a historically, or what appears to be an historically strong job market, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy for us to get a job doing something we really like or love, that's going to pay us well. That's still going to take some work on our part. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through a 5-step process that I developed a few years ago now. And it's really the key things that you need to do in order to get this job that you will love and that will pay you well. Okay. And I before I started, I should have mentioned, I usually reflect back on my guests from the previous week. So my guest, so I'm going to just take a moment out here on, maybe this is the commercial break, My guest last week was Kira Storajev, and Kira is a longstanding friend of mine, and she talked about investing in cryptocurrencies and foreign exchange. She's done very well in that. She's been helping me understand it better and make some investments as well. So if you are interested in those at all, I highly, highly recommend that you go to our YouTube channel, The Way to Wow, and look up Kira's episode. I got a text message from my mother yesterday saying that she watched it while she was waiting for a doctor's appointment, and indeed from my mother, high praise. She said, Kira is such a nice lady, and indeed she is. Although, being my peer, it seems like, I'm a boy and she's a girl, but we're actually, I guess, old enough to be called ladies and gentlemen now. So I mentioned this at the end of her show last week. I've seen many presentations now on cryptocurrencies, and I think that Kira's is really the most easily understood, the clearest presentation on cryptocurrencies that I've seen. It can be a little bit complex, in those investments, and Kira really broke it down in a way that's pretty easy to understand. So again, if you're at all interested in them, I would encourage you to check out Kira's episode. And she was kind enough to include her contact information. So if you have questions or you're interested in kind of going to the next level in terms of your education, Kira would be happy to have you reach out to her. This has been really the story of her whole life is doing well by helping other people do well. So I encourage you to check out her episode from last week. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up this presentation, and here we go. Share the screen. And okay, so here we have what I call the only 5 steps you need to take to get a high-paying job. Now, again, if you read my social media posts, it also said starting a business, and indeed, these days the process of starting your own business is not so different from getting a high-paying job. The difference is, in starting your business, you're going to figure out what you want to do, and we'll talk about that process as one of the steps. But instead of having one client, your employer, you'll have more than one client, i.e. your clients, right? Or your customers, depending on, the type of business that you have. So you can apply these steps, I think, quite easily if you're interested in starting a business. And as always, if there's anything you're not clear about or whatever, feel free to drop a question in the chat, or, send me a message. You can go to thewaytowowshow.com and you can contact me through our website. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, or connect up with me if you're on social media. Feel free to ask me a question there, post a comment, and I will be happy to do my very best to answer any questions that you have. So let's move on here. All right, so these are the 5 steps. First of all, to have a mission and goals. Okay? If you don't know where you want to go, you're not going to get there. It's really that simple. And I know that sounds, somewhat simplistic, but think about it for a minute. The classic example that's used is a plane flying from Los Angeles to Honolulu, Hawaii, right? So the plane's mission is to get to Hawaii, get to Honolulu, and its goal is to do that as efficiently as possible with the least amount of turbulence for the passengers, obviously safely, all those kind of things, right? So without that, the plane takes off. Where's it going? Where's it going, right? And the reality, though, and this is why I like this example, is we think about, when a plane takes off, it's it's targeted in on going to Honolulu. It's on this vector and it never deviates. And the reality is that's not true at all. The winds buffet the plane here or there, and it's constantly, at least in small ways, correcting its course as it gets ever closer to Honolulu. And that's how it works for us on our job hunts or on starting a business. We have our mission, we have our goals, but throughout the pursuit of those, we're not always going to be right on target. We're going to get pushed over here or pushed over there. We're going to have a setback. We may face some headwinds. That's all part of the process, right? Okay, so step number one, have a mission and goals. Step number two, you need to figure out your unique value proposition. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit, but I did an entire show on this a couple of weeks ago, and I really dug in deep on how you do this. This is the crux of figuring out what is it you want to do that you'll enjoy, that you have the competency for, and that will pay you well. Okay, so those are the three parts of a unique value proposition. We'll review those a little bit later in the broadcast, but we won't go if you really want to go in depth, which I encourage you to do. Take a look at the episode from I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Okay, number three, create targeted relationships. Whether you want to find a job, whether you want to start a business, it's all going to come down to meeting and creating relationships with the right people, the people who can hire you, the people who can put you in touch with people who can hire you, or the people who can be your clients or can connect you with people who can be your clients or customers, right? And I use the word targeted because not all relationships can do that. I have a relationship with my mother, but she's been out of the workforce for too long. The reality is that's not a business relationship anymore. I have other relationships with friends like my friend Bill. So we've been friends for many, many years now, but also we have a business relationship. So he's my accountability coach and we trade referrals back and forth to help each other in our businesses, right? So you want to be strategic, and I'm going to talk about that, and really a lot of what we talk about is going to be in terms of developing those relationships that we need. That's going to make the difference. Okay. Step number 4, market yourself. Okay. Now, especially when I used to work with veterans exclusively or military people exclusively, they really had trouble with this. There seems to be, I don't know, maybe a stigma to the idea of self-promotion. But, we can market ourselves in a way that is credible, that's honorable, and doesn't make us, look obnoxious or whatever. And there's with integrity, and that's really what we're looking to do. Okay, we don't want to be in people's faces when we market ourselves. We want to market ourselves in a way that creates those relationships. So 3 and 4 work together quite closely. Okay, and then step number 5: meet and negotiate. So a lot of people call the meetings that you'll have when you're in your job hunt interviews. To be honest, I don't like that word, because an interview sounds like we're going in as the weaker party and kind of, with our hat in our hand, please, sir, may I have a job, kind of thing. That's not, we should be interviewing prospective employers just as thoroughly as they interview us, if a job is what we're after. And so that's why you'll hear me, I'll call it a meeting to discuss a job, or meetings to discuss a job. That's really what we're doing when we get together, with the hiring manager or with another person within a company that is going to have some kind of say on who gets the job. Now, of course, when we're talking to prospective clients as a business owner, indeed they are meetings. We're having a meeting with a prospective client. And I would encourage you to think about meetings, whether it's to get a job or whether it's to get clients or customers, I would encourage you to think of them in that same context. This employer that you may want to work for is really going to be a client to you, your one and only client, perhaps. Okay. And in that way, you come in with a different mindset. Not as the person, the weaker of the two parties, number one, but number two, with a mindset of how am I going to serve this client? That's very important. Okay. So meet, and then of course, negotiate if there's an offer of employment made, or if the person is interested in actually using your business. And of course, you may have to negotiate terms of some kind. Okay. So that's step number 5. All right. Let's go with now step number 1, purpose, mission, and goals. Okay. So step number 1 is to have a mission and goals. Now, this is more involved, I think, than a lot of us consider. So I use the words purpose and mission in very specific ways. Many people feel they're essentially the same thing. Some people define them the opposite of the way I define them. There's no particular magic here. What I'm trying to get at is there are different aspects to figuring out who we are and what we really want. Okay, so when I talk about your purpose, that's an inward looking function. Who am I? Okay, so I'll use myself as an example. One thing I am is I'm a father. Right? I have my daughter. And so part of my identity is being her father. At this point, she's, in her mid-teens. And as we've discussed many times, the days of me telling her what to do are very, very, very rapidly coming to a close. I'm really there now to help her learn how to run her own life. So as her father, that part of my purpose is to be that good father to her, hopefully as good a father as I can possibly be. Now I have other aspects to my purpose. So I'm Jewish, I'm a rabbi, I'm a businessman, I'm a runner, I'm a polymath. So all of these fit into my overall purpose, how I see myself and how I hope other people will see me, inward looking. Okay, that's what I call your purpose. Okay, and in many ways, it can just be a list of roles that you hold in your life, right? You may be, I don't know, maybe you coach a little league or you coach youth soccer. And that's a very important aspect of your life. Okay, great. So that's part of your purpose. Maybe you're a physician. Okay, maybe I have a friend who has been a avid scuba diver. I've mentioned Bob a few times before, for decades, right? It's part of his purpose. He is a scuba diver. That's part of who he is. Okay, right, so that's your purpose. Now your mission then is the impact you want to have on other people, maybe even on the world at large. This is what you want to do. Your purpose is who you are. Your mission is what you do. Okay. Now, each is going to inform the other, right? So if I am indeed a father, which I am, then part of my mission is to develop a strong, mutually nourishing, loving relationship with my daughter. Okay, and if you were to read my mission statement, it's in French, so I can practice my French, but you would see that's part of my mission statement. Okay, and what I've done is I took each part of my purpose and not each part, but several parts of my purpose to actively work on as part of my life's mission. Okay, so in some cases, they're how I want to impact myself. So I have health goals, for example, whether it's amount of exercise, the amount of sleep I get. A part of my mission is to have those healthy health habits, right? And others are how I want to impact other people, help other people learn, grow, become wealthier, enjoy a happier life, right? So my mission statement breaks down into several parts. and they relate to my purpose. Okay. But as I've developed my mission, I've also seen that sometimes my purpose has to change as well. So this is not a static situation. One is going to impact another, and over time you're going to see that they work together, hopefully in concert, and you'll get to know yourself ever better. And then hopefully the important people in your life will do the same thing as well through learning more about your purpose and mission. Okay. So again, purpose is your identity. Who are you? Kind of inward looking. Mission is what impact do you want to have on other people, on the world at large? Okay. Now, why is it important to know that before you go job hunting or before you start a business? It's because a lot of us tend to look at particular professions and say, oh, that looks interesting. And then we get into them and realize, wow, this just does not feel right. This is not me, right? So I have a friend who is looking to get, I may have mentioned her before, she's looking to get into with one of the big tech companies. I honestly don't think that's the right place for her. I think that is absolutely at odds with her purpose and her mission, for that matter. She's a very creative, passionate person, a beautiful singer. I mean, a voice like an angel, right? And from what I've heard about what it's like to work at big tech companies, I just don't see her fitting in, to be honest. So I think that perhaps I'm not saying she doesn't understand her purpose and mission. I think she's overriding it for other reasons. And we do that really at our peril. If you have any friends who are lawyers, I think you'll find many lawyers are very unhappy being lawyers. Much of what they have to do just doesn't fit with their purpose. It may kind of fit with their mission. And so they end up at odds. I see the same thing too among some of the investment bankers that I know. And so, we want to develop a professional persona. We want to develop a professional persona, professional milieu that's in concert with our purpose and mission. And so that's why it's important to know those aspects of ourselves as well as we can. Now, of course, we can't spend our whole life figuring out our purpose and mission before we go out and get a job. So we got to do the best that we can in the time that we have, and we need to move on. Okay, and look, it may turn out that the job that we get that we thought was going to be so great doesn't work. So then hopefully at that point we'll have the courage to go in a different direction. Okay, and hopefully we'll learn more about our purpose and mission as a result of that misstep. Okay, all right. So then the third is to have goals, right? And really the key, and I'm going to talk specifically about professional goal setting now, because that's really what we're here to do today. So the best way to approach this, I recommend, is to start out with a long range goal, not a short range goal. Okay, so start out with a goal 10 years out or even 20 years out. Okay, most of my long range goals tend to be 10 to 30 years in the future. Okay, now they're kind of getting shorter over the years as I get older, right? So there's not a whole lot of 30-year goals left anymore. Most of them I think are more like 25 now. But when I set them, they were 30. I think I even set one that was a 35-year goal or something like that, right? Where do you want to be in 10, 20, 30 years professionally? Paint that picture. Once you know that, then you can start chunking back. So if you want to be, let's say you want to be CEO of a major multinational company in 30 years. Okay, well, then where do you need to be in 15 years? Do you need to be a vice president? Okay, what is the career progression of someone who becomes a CEO? Okay, if that's your goal, right? If you have to be a vice president in 15 years, where do you need to be in 5 years? Do you see how having that long range goal gives you the perspective you need in order to figure out the more short-term goals? Okay, that's what makes goal setting effective. Okay, and so you'll chunk back from, say, 30 to maybe 20 or 15, and then maybe to 10 or 5, and then eventually you'll chunk back to what I need to do in the next year. Okay, and then from there, the next month. Okay, so I set monthly objectives. Well, I set 1 year goals before the beginning of each year, and then before each month starts, I figure out, okay, what do I need to get done this month in order to meet these goals at the end of the year? Okay, and then hopefully it all kind of flows together. Now, does that mean I've always met, my midterm or long range goals? No, of course not. Of course not. First of all, sometimes I end up changing my long-term or midterm goals. For whatever reason, they don't remain relevant, or I take a different direction with my life. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, but we still want to know when the plane takes off. Okay, we're flying to Honolulu. Now, sometimes the plane has to divert to San Francisco for whatever reason. Okay, well, so then it does. Then we land in San Francisco. We got to figure out, okay, where am I going from here? Okay. But if you don't know that your original goal is Honolulu, for sure you're not going to get anywhere you want to go. Okay, unless your goal is to just sort of amble through life. All right, so that's your mission and goals. Step number 2, develop your unique value proposition. In order to figure out your unique value proposition, you need to know 3 things: your skills, knowledge, and experience. That's number 1. In other words, the things you're good at. Number 2, your passion. Now, some people are put off by this word passion. I get it. I get it. It sounds a little highfalutin. You don't necessarily have to think of it as passion, but what do you like to do, or what do you love to do? Okay. Now, by the way, notice if you have the skills and abilities and knowledge to do something and you enjoy doing it, those two together by themselves make a really great hobby. Because, so I'll give you an example. I love eating chocolate. I've used this example. I use this example, 2 weeks ago when I did the overall broadcast on the UVP. I've only found, I think, 3 or 4 people in the world who can make a living eating chocolate. Okay, so for me, it's a very deep, abiding hobby, if you will, that I enjoy sharing with friends and other people. But the reality is, it doesn't have the third aspect, which is market demand. Meaning, are there people out there that will pay you for the skills and to do the thing that you like to do? It takes all 3 of these in order for you to have a viable, unique value proposition that can lead you to a high-paying job that you'll like or love, rather than a hobby. Okay. Now, by the way, notice that if you have passion and market demand alone, that's great. But if you don't have the skills for it, it's going to be very difficult for you to get that job or start a business in that area. And notice if you have the skills and the market demand, but you don't like what you're doing, maybe you can make a lot of money, but you're going to hate your professional life, or at least be bored by it, or not like it, not enjoy it, right? And that's where I mentioned before, that's where I find a lot of attorneys end up, is they get stuck because they have the skills, they're doing well, so there's market demand, they're getting paid well, but either they realize they never really had the passion for being a lawyer, or they lost the passion somewhere along the way, and so their professional life becomes very, very challenging. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any more time on UVP. If you want to know more about it, then I would recommend that you watch the recording of the show that I did on just developing your unique value proposition. Okay, that's step number 2. Step number 3, create targeted relationships. Okay. This is frankly not just the key to finding that job that you want or starting that business you want. It is the key to life. Okay. To life, right? For those of you who know Fiddler on the Roof. My daughter's probably tired of hearing me talk about this particular subject. I think we must talk about at least a little bit almost every day that we're together. So the reality, though, is to use, I forget who said this. I don't know if it was Zig Ziglar or the fellow who teaches negotiations, Dawson. But pretty much everything we want in life is owned or controlled by someone else. So if we want financial success, that means we want to earn money doing something, selling some products or selling a service, something like that. The money's going to have to come from the people who have the money. Okay, so we need to have relationships with those people in order to gain that wealth that we're after. Okay, if we want companionship, by definition, right? Companionship means love and attention from another person, or maybe another animal, I guess, if you're in that direction, right? So in any event, relationships end up being the true crux of life. And this is nowhere more true than in our professional lives. Okay, so the key is to find people who we can have relationships with that we can help. Now, I know you're thinking, wait a minute, what about me? What about me? If we can find people in the industry that we want to be in, that we can help, us getting help will take care of itself. That's really the key. That's really the key. And this is where I think a lot of people make a mistake. When they go to a networking event, they're looking for, let's see, who can help me? Who can help me? This person can help me. And they're talking to the person, and it becomes very obvious that they want the person's help. And now some people will be happy to give them help if mentoring is part of their purpose in life, part of their mission. But for a lot of people, that's very off-putting, because it feels like, wait, all you care about is what you can get from me. Why would I want to have a relationship with you? Right? And that's not a relationship, by the way. Okay, that's just using the other person. That's not, I discourage you from looking at it from that perspective. Rather, look at it from the perspective of, who can I meet that I can help? Now, it's a reasonable question to say, well, wait a minute, if I'm not in the industry, how can I help people who are in the industry? And the answer is, people have lots and lots of needs, okay? Not just professional needs. In many ways, being able to fill some other need will advance the relationship more quickly. Okay, I'll give you just a little teeny example of something that I did really last night and today. So I used to teach Sunday school, and I was going through some stuff from my days as a Sunday school teacher. This goes back to the mid 80s. And I was showing them to my daughter, and I came across the newspaper that I used to edit for the Sunday school. And it had an article about the wife of a business associate of mine. And it was written, I think, just shortly after they got married. Now, I'm pretty sure he'd never seen it. And I'm not even sure she did. Or maybe she did, but I doubt she remembered it. So I took a photo of the newspaper and I sent it to him. And just said, hey, I thought you'd get a kick out of seeing this. They're coming up a couple of years, they'll be celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. I mean, that's really amazing, right? Who's married 40 years these days? And he really got a kick out of seeing it. He's looking forward to showing it to his wife, right? Really super simple, right? there's another a little thing that I do. This is more of just developing a relationship. There's not probably going to be business or anything coming out of this. But when I was in a clothing store a couple of weeks ago, I ended up talking to a couple of the young women who work there, and we got on the subject of chocolate. And it turns out, like me, they're big chocoholics, right? So, periodically when I'm on my way past the store, if I remember, I'll grab a chocolate bar from my stash, and I'll pop in and I'll give it to them. And I mean, you should see their eyes light up. It's just, I'm only doing it to make them happy, really. Like the best day, the worst day eating chocolate is better than the best day doing a lot of other things, right? That kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe someday down the road, I don't know, it'll benefit me somehow. I don't really care, honestly. To a certain extent, I feel like what goes around comes around. If we can bring more enjoyment, more happiness into people's lives, so then somehow that'll redound to us, right? So just little things like that. So if you go into somebody's office for a meeting, take a look around, see what's on their shelves, what's on their desk. Maybe they have a picture of them fishing and you're into fishing, and maybe they're a fly fisherman, right? And maybe you have some special fly that you find has been very, very effective. I don't know, for trout fishing, right? Maybe send them one, and say, hey, I noticed you, or we talked about how you enjoy trout fishing, trout fly fishing. And I thought if you didn't have one of these, you might enjoy trying this. Okay. Flies really, I don't think they're that expensive. Certainly they weren't when I was a Boy Scout fishing. Maybe they're more expensive now, but just a little thing like that, it makes a huge difference for someone, right? And it really will advance the relationship. Okay. So don't worry so much about, don't worry at all about what can they do for you. If they're in the industry you want to be in, that's all that matters. And then look to see, what can I do for these people? That should be on your mind whenever you interact with them. So the first thing you want to do is connect with these people. How do you do that? LinkedIn is an excellent tool for doing that, because you can search for people by industry, by company. If you were at a large firm before, you can look for alumni of that firm. That, in other words, it was their past job was with that firm, and now they're somewhere else. And you can search for the industry you want to go into, and alumni of the big company you used to be in. This is particularly good for military people. You can search people who were in the U.S. Army or the Navy or Marine Corps or Air Force or whatever, who are now in, the biomedical industry. And those are prime people for you to connect with. You can do the same thing if you went to a college or university. You can search for people who, I went to USC. So at one point I searched for people who went to USC who were also involved in a particular industry. And then I sent the messages saying, hey, would you like to connect? And some people did. And then, I sent them, would you like to talk or meet for coffee or whatever? This was, pre-COVID, of course. And some did. There's a bit of an iterative process. Not everybody you contact is going to want to connect with you and talk to you and meet with you or whatever, but enough will, if you keep at it, that you'll be able to build up a group of relationships and start building them. Okay. So the first step is to connect. Okay. And there's other ways to connect, by the way. Get involved in doing something you enjoy doing. Maybe it's some kind of charity or nonprofit. Maybe it's some sort of arts thing. You like the ballet, or you like art museums or whatever. So get involved with an organization related to these activities or these interests, and you'll meet people there, right? And then you can see, who in these organizations has similar professional interests that you have. Okay, so lots of ways to find people to connect with. And then as you're developing the relationship, you're going to need to assess, is this somebody who really is looking to have a relationship with me? Or after a while, do you see, well, they sure like when I give, but that's all it's about. It's always about me giving. There's never any interest at all in giving back. So at some point you may decide, you know what, this is not a good relationship for me to maintain, because it takes work to build and maintain relationships. And so periodically you're going to need to assess, or maybe the person moves out of the industry that you're interested in. And so you need to find someone else to be spending time working with in order to pursue your professional goals. You say, well, gosh, that's pretty cold-blooded. Well, I'm not saying you have to drop the person completely, but you may de-emphasize building that relationship in favor of another relationship that has greater long-term potential for you. Look, nobody's going to look after yourself but you, and so we need to take these considerations into account. Okay, so periodically assess. How is the relationship going? Is it becoming more and more mutual? Are we going in a similar direction? Okay, and is this a relationship that I want to spend my time and resources maintaining? Okay, finally, and this is what I was talking about before, provide value. The issue is, what can I do for this person? How can I help this person, right? And we talked about that already. But in the end, if we can provide value to people, they will want to have a relationship with us. Okay, number 4, market yourself. All right, so if you have not done this, first thing to do is Google your name, okay, and see what is on the internet about you, okay? You may be surprised, hopefully pleasantly surprised, but you may be shockingly surprised. Okay, you may have gone to spring break a few years ago and done some crazy stuff and not realize that a friend or even a stranger took pictures of you and posted them on Facebook. And now when you search your name, there you are in all your glory. Oops. So that's the first thing to do. Now, you may find some negative things about yourself. And if so, if there was friends who posted it, I would recommend you go to the friends and say, hey, look, I'm working on my professional life here. Would you delete the spring break photos or the, the bachelorette party photos or whatever it was? I would get rid of all that stuff. That can be problematic for a lot of employers, even today, maybe even especially today. People are very sensitive to the images of their businesses, okay? And people are also sensitive about the image of the business they do business with. So if you're starting your own business and you are not presenting yourself in a way that your potential clients and customers like, that can really hold you back, okay? So find out what's on there and take steps to start getting rid of it. The second thing to do in marketing yourself is make sure you have a really solid LinkedIn profile. Okay. Now, in order to do that, I recommend a book by a friend of mine named Matthew Fritz, F-R-I-T-Z. Matthew is a retired Air Force officer, and it's a very short book, but it's got some great tips on how to really do a great LinkedIn profile. There are other resources around. I just happen to mention Matthew's book. You can find it on Amazon. It's very inexpensive. I happen to mention Matthew's book because it is really nice resource. I've read it and I've used some of the information from it. Keep in mind, your LinkedIn profile these days is basically your resume. So you see, number 3, you have to have a resume. In many ways, your resume, when people are considering you for a job, and even if they're considering you to hire as, they're going to be your client or customer, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. Maybe even before you meet them or even speak to them, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. So that being the case, you want to make sure you have a great LinkedIn profile. You want to have pictures that are indicative of who you are and how you can help people. You want to be clear about what you've done. Mostly, not so much what you've done in terms of, I managed 20 people or blah, blah, blah. The results that you've gotten. That's what you want to focus on in your LinkedIn profile. How did you improve whatever organization, company, sports team, whatever it was you were involved in? How did you improve their performance? How did you help them meet their goals and objectives? That's what you want to focus on in your LinkedIn profile. Because in the end, for a company that's considering hiring you, they're hiring you because they think you're going to be able to help them meet their goals and objectives. If you did it before, you're more likely to do it again. Okay. And the better you can quantify that success. When I say quantify, reduced operating costs by 9%. Okay, wow. That's better than reduced operating costs. Reduced operating costs could be, you reduce them 0.5%, big deal. That could have just been a fluctuation. Reduced operating costs 9%, or even better, reduced overhead by 10%, reduced labor costs by 3%, or maybe I reduced overhead by 10%, I increased labor costs by 5%, which resulted in a 12% increase in productivity. Wow. Do you see what I'm saying? So the more specific, the more quantitative you can be in describing how you've helped companies and organizations, the better it is. And that's what you want to focus on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. And then in your resume, very much the same thing. I don't want to spend a lot of time on resume because to a certain extent, they're outmoded these days. But the reality is you want a resume that's 1 page long. Okay. At the very most, 2. Now, there are exceptions. In academia, you might have a CV, a curriculum vitae, and that may be more pages than 1 or 2. That's a different animal. But for most of us, 1 page, 2 at the absolute most. Okay. And the reality is, if the CEO of a major company can have a 1 page resume, so can we. Okay. So we just need to be as concise as we possibly can be. Okay. Step number 5, meet and negotiate. So when you have identified an opportunity at a particular company and have been asked to meet with them, whether it's an online meeting, a Zoom meeting, or face-to-face, or a telephone meeting, whatever it is, you're going to need to do some preparation. Don't go into the meeting cold. Okay, do not do that unless you don't want the job, in which case you're better off just telling them, you know what, on reflection, thank you very much for offering to meet with me, but I've changed my mind. I'm not interested in working for your company. I don't want to waste your time. Okay. I don't think you want people wasting your time. Have the courtesy not to waste other people's time. So if you're not willing to do the research to really find out what you might be getting into, I would suggest to you, maybe that's not a place you really want to work. Okay. So you're going to have to make that upfront investment. What do you want to research? Well, first of all, you want to research, if you can, a little bit about who you're going to meet with. Okay. Who is this person? Where are they in the company structure? Okay. That sort of thing. Research about the company. What does it do? How long has it been in business? What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses? What is its corporate culture like? Okay. That is a crucial thing for you to know. Now, some companies it'll be fairly easy to find this kind of information. Others, it won't be. And especially where you can't find the information, this is why I like to call these meetings to discuss a job as opposed to interviews. Because one of the things you're going to want to do is talk to the person that you're meeting with and get yourself filled in on these questions that you weren't able to answer through your research. Okay, so corporate culture, what is the corporate culture here? What is the attitude toward family life versus work life? What is the attitude toward time off? What is the opportunity for advancement? Those kinds of things. That's all part of the corporate culture. Okay, and you may have very specific questions about corporate culture as they apply to you as an individual. You want to research them if you can. And then if you still have questions, ask the questions. Or if you can't find any information, make sure you jot those down. Go into the meeting with those questions so you can get them answered. Okay. So that's research. And then preparation. So preparation is not just having your questions ready. It's knowing, how should I dress? Okay. Now, it's very popular nowadays with Zoom meetings to only dress from the waist up. right? And to wear like pajama bottoms or whatever, and a dress shirt and maybe even a tie or something. I am, to be honest with you, I am not a fan of that. There's lots and lots of studies that show we behave very much in concert with how we're dressed. So if I could pull back the camera, you'd see I have slacks on. I do have comfortable shoes on because I stand at a stand-up desk all day. And I frankly, when I go out of the house, I change my shoes. But other than that, I am dressed the way I would dress whether I was working in an office or where I work at home, whether I'm going to have meetings or whether I'm just going to be on the phone and no one's going to see me, because I want to feel that professional feeling. Okay. So depending on what industry you're in, that will, to a certain extent, tell you how you need to prepare in terms of dress. Okay, how should you be addressing people? Are they very casual? Are they not so casual? You know, some people a little bit older, like me, you know, I mean, I don't care. You can call me by my first name, but other people, you know, when they first meet you, you know, they're going to introduce you. I'm I'm Mr. Bemmel or I'm Rabbi Bemmel or whatever, right? But please call me Kevin. You know, that's how I would introduce myself. You know, but you may not be on a first name basis. I think most businesses are these days, but not necessarily. So how is that going to work, right? You know, do you need to bring a resume? The answer is probably yes. As outmoded as resumes are, if you're going into a meeting to discuss a job, at some point you may very well get asked, did you bring a copy of your resume? You want to say the answer should be yes, and it should be nicely done, a nice paper, clean, not folded, not crumpled, not dirty, all that kind of stuff. So you want to make those preparations. And finally, you want to drill. Practice answering questions. Now, you don't want to sound like, a video loop, but you do want to sound poised, confident, okay? And especially if you get nervous in interviews or in meetings, you do want to practice. So find someone who will practice with you over Zoom or face-to-face or even over the phone. If that's all you can do is over the phone, just do it over the phone. Of course, phones these days, smartphones have FaceTime and all that, okay? You can also use the video function on your phone. So you can video yourself answering questions and then look at yourself and go, wow, is that how I want to appear? Okay. And that'll give you some sense of what it would be like or what you're going to be like in a meeting. Okay. So those are all techniques that you can use, all part of the research preparation, getting ready for those meetings. Okay. Now, number one tip at the end of a meeting, remember to do this final step. And that is say something along these lines. This comes from a book called What Color is Your Parachute? So I didn't make this up. I want to give credit where credit is due. So after the meeting is basically done, but before you leave, before it formally ends, look at the person and say, given what we've discussed today, what I've learned about your company, what you've learned about me as a candidate, are you in a position to offer me the job? Or will you offer me the job? And then don't say a word. And let the person think about it. Okay? Now, many times they will say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not. Nothing against you, but I have to discuss this with the other members of my team or blah, 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 blah. Great. So when may I hear back from you? Or when may I expect to hear back from you? See that? That's what we call closing. And it's perfectly legitimate. Now, by the way, there may very well be times when you ask that question and the person will go, actually, as I think about it, you are far and away the best candidate. Yes, we are going to offer you the job. Well, there you go. Okay. So don't leave without at least broaching that question. Okay. That is if you want the job. Now, by the way, if you get through the meeting and decide, wow, I really do not want to work at this place. So give the hiring manager, the person you're meeting with, the courtesy of saying, having learned what I've learned about your company and talked with you, and I mean no personal offense, but I've come to the conclusion this is not the right organization for me to be a part of. I thank you very much for your time, and would like to withdraw myself from any further consideration. Now, by the way, if they really like you and really want to offer you the job, you've just probably bumped your salary by 10% by showing disinterest or expressing dis. And they may ask you why. Why are you not interested in us? Make sure you have an answer to that. Okay? Maybe it's a misimpression that you've had, or maybe it's something that they want to work on. And so the fact that you don't like that about their company makes you all the more attractive. Well, we are trying to change that aspect of our company. We would welcome having someone like you on our team, who will be candid, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So remember to do that as your last step. Okay. So here's what I would say. Take action, right? If you are not happy in the position you're in right now, work-wise, professionally, now's the time to start moving in a better direction, whether it's to find a job, whether it's to start your own business. And if you saw the show last week, last week was not Kira. Sorry, I realized last week was Michael Schwartz. So Michael talked about starting his own law firm after years of working for other people, right? And it took a lot of courage. He talks about some of the things that he was really concerned about. So take a look at last week's show with Michael Schwartz, and he'll give you some great insight into what it takes to start that business. So start working on that. Figure out, what is my purpose, mission, and goals? What are my skills? What do I really like to do? Or maybe draft your resume. Start thinking about an elevator pitch. Okay, those are all initial steps that you can take to start moving you into a direction of greater professional satisfaction. Okay, if you need some help, there we go. Okay, so you can go to any of these websites, or you can use the email address, or you can go to thewaytowowshow.com, and you can contact me through there. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, connect you with any resources that you might need if I have the ability to do so, and help you on your way. I just need to show you this real quickly. Here's the legal stuff, right? Copyright 2022 by the Bemmel Company, right? So none of this is all my stuff. I would ask you not to use it under your own name. If you want to, I would appreciate if you'll refer anyone to this show who's looking to better their professional situation. Happy to have you, share a link to the video and all that. But this information itself is my proprietary information. Okay, so I'm going to leave the get help up here. So that if any of you want to do so, you have this information. I just have a couple minutes left here before the hour is up. It goes so fast. I want to thank you for joining me on this broadcast. I hope you found it informational. I hope you found it useful. And I hope also it inspires you to take that next step in your professional journey. And if you are already in a position of doing something remarkable to make a living, or you know someone who is in that position, please let me know. Drop me a comment, send me an email, send me a message through the Way to Wow Show website. Let me know about you or the person. I'd love to have them as a guest and let them share their story with us so that we can both be inspired and learn. And finally, I want to just mention my guest for next week is a friend of mine, David Nodowitz. David is one of the top forensic video experts in the country. And David is going to talk about his story of having wanted to be, the sort of classic filmmaker that everybody dreams they're going to be. And he took this professional arc to being one of the top people in this sort of allied field that keeps him within the world that he loves, film and video, but has allowed him to do extremely well. So hopefully you'll tune in for that next week. Last thing right here with the last sort of 10, 15 seconds before we're done. I realize, for the first two seasons of my show, I always ended them by giving a little tribute to someone who's a very special person in my life. Her name is Marie. I won't get into the story now. There's not enough time. But Marie has had a big impact on my life. One point when she was sick, and unfortunately, shortly before she passed away, I was visiting her, and she said to me, "You know, Kevin, you're my beau," but not in any weird way. It so deeply touched my heart. And so I'm going to start signing off again the way I was signing off seasons 1 and 2 of the show, and that is in reminding Marie, up there in heaven, you are still my belle, darling. So thank you all very much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have a comment, question, please drop it into any of the chats. This show will automatically post to the various social media sites, and I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Welcome.